Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. This is podcast episode 159. We're going to call this why you shouldn't rely solely on Etsy part 2. If you guys have been listening to my podcast for a hot minute, you'll know that podcast 59, which was a while ago. Ooh, that's weird. Podcast 59. And then this is 159. Dun, dun, dun. It's 100 episodes in between the two. A lot's happened in between the two episodes, but I still agree with what I said on podcast episode 59. You can't only have all of your eggs into Etsy's basket. I love you, but it's not a good business decision if you're trying to grow a business. So I'm going to talk about that today because how many of you heard that Etsy made some big changes last week? If you haven't heard about it yet, I'm getting ready to tell you. So stay tuned. And right now is a good time to hit the share button, which looks like you're shuffling a piece of paper if you're on Apple iTunes. No, what's it called? Apple Podcasts. There you go. And so you can send it to a friend, the girl you know up the street who's got an Etsy shop, or your sister-in-law who's thinking about starting an Etsy shop, or anybody you know who has an Etsy shop. If you would share this with them, I would appreciate it because I do think it'll help them. So real quick though, I'm going to read a review from somebody named Mary Evolved. So here's what Mary took the time to go to Apple iTunes and write. She says, Jennifer, you're a blessing. I just listened to your show on social media in 2020 and what's going to be working. Your episode was so on point and the lessons immediately leveled me up. And I'm like, yes. If you haven't listened to that podcast, I believe it was back in January. And so it's 4 types of things that are going to do great on social media in 2020. So go listen to that. She says she grabbed her phone and took a video. She jumped in. She's on it. Not only am I inspirational, but also a great example for what's possible when you listen to God's plan. I thank God for you and your amazing energy and your gifts. Well, Mary Evolved, I thank God for you and the fact that you left a review because the reviews matter. The reviews matter. And so thank you for doing that. If you listen to this podcast, would you go leave a review? Because this is how we get great guests. This is how other people decide if they want me to be a guest because they judge the greatness of my speaking and my content and my podcast by the number of reviews. So that's why reviews matter. You can just even go and just leave a 5-star. Just hit the star. But if you want a possible shout out, make sure you leave the review as your business. Okie dokie artichoke. So Mary Evolved, I just pray a blessing over you and your business in Jesus' name. So thank you. Okay, so let me give you the story of what I understand happened on Etsy last week. Now, in full disclosure, I don't have an Etsy store. I've never had an Etsy store. My background is that I owned a decorative painting company starting in the year 2000, so there was no need for an Etsy store. But I always knew that I was not a fan of the Etsys. Now listen, some of you are already you're already irritated because you're like, Etsy's doing amazing for me. I made $500 last month. Okay, well, great. That's great. But there's 500 more to be made. And I want you to be making it on your own platform where you have control because Etsy is the boss of you. If you're watching this right now on YouTube, Lola, the dogs are getting excited. So excited. I'm so sorry. This is real life podcasting. Lola, come here. Get into here and lay down. Thank you. Now I'm distracted. Sorry about that. But we've got my book right here if you're watching on YouTube. Fear's not the boss of you. But listen, Etsy is the boss of you. And since Etsy is the boss of you, those of you that are on the Etsy platform and selling things there, you got notified last week of a new policy, which essentially says this. If you make over $10,000 in the last 12 months, you are automatically enrolled in a new policy from Etsy. So what is that? Like $800-ish, $850 a month if you're making over that for the last 12 months. If you made over 10 grand in the last 12 months, you're automatically enrolled in this new policy, which basically says if somebody purchases, if they see an Etsy ad for one of your items and they purchase your item from that ad, you're going to automatically have to pay 12% of that purchase to Etsy in an advertising fee. If you make over $10,000 in the last 12 months with Etsy, you cannot opt out. This is mandatory. If you made less than 10K, you get to decide if you want to be a part of the program. Like right now, you're automatically enrolled, if I understand correctly, but you have to remember to opt out at an unspecified date in the future. How many of you forget to undo things? Like you sign yourself up for that automatic toilet paper delivery from the Amazons and then you forget to undo that. Or you've signed up from a class before. You're like, I'm just going to take 1 month and then I'm going to get out. I mean, don't do this on my class, but do it on everybody else's. And you forget and then you get charged again and you get charged again. Okay. So Etsy is basically saying you have to be a big girl or boy, and you're going to have to remember when to go and opt out for this. Okay. And what's interesting is like, well, then what if you're like really close to making $10,000 a year? Like, let's say you're at $9,500 you made in the last 12 months. Like, do you automatically try to stay under then the $10,000 so you don't have to pay advertising fees? I think that stinks. And I think if you make over 10 grand a year and you're automatically enrolled, like that stinks too. I think it smells. That's just me. But okay. According to Etsy, about 1 in 10 purchases are made from an ad. So this fee will be collected on about 10% of the purchases for the year. So who wins here? Etsy wins. Okay. Here's what I need you to know. Any way you slice this, Etsy wins. If you're somebody that's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, you're probably making a lot of money on Etsy. And if you're making a lot of money on Etsy, you're probably smart enough that you've got your own website too. You're probably business savvy enough that you've taken some of those Etsy earnings and you've started your own thing also. Honestly. Any purchases, by the way, if you've clicked on an Etsy ad, any purchases from the same site within 30 days will also get that fee, which is 12 to 15%. 30-day cookie is a long time. It essentially means if somebody comes to your site from an ad and they decide I'm not gonna buy it today, but they come back anytime in the next 30 days, when payday hits, when they have a birthday, when they get some Christmas money, when they're feeling froggy and have their credit card in front of them, what have you. If they come back within 30 days, Etsy still gets a percentage of that. So it's my understanding Etsy announced this last week, and it does start in a few weeks. In other words, you have zero say. I was watching some stuff on Twitter. I'm not big on Twitter. I'll be honest. I'm not a tweet. And Jason calls it Twitter face, by the way. It just makes me giggle because we're like old. But I do like to go for Twitter for information. I also have like almost 40,000 followers on Twitter. How weird is that, right? So I do like to go to the Twitters for information. So if you look up hashtag Etsy offsite ads or hashtag Etsy ads, you can see a lot of discussion and you can see a lot of very upset people. There was one person on there who was basically adding up all the ad fees, all the transaction fees, all the credit card fees, and all the listing fees. And you're going to be paying as the seller anywhere between 20 to 29% of the price of that item out. You're losing that, like gone. And for those of you who are building a business and you're trying to build a business, this is not the way to do it. Listen, Etsy has changed also. It's not like it used to be in terms of all of your things get shown. It's interesting to me. There's a girl that recently got her Etsy account shut down. It's my understanding from her personally that she was behind on some of her Etsy orders, fulfilling the orders. By the way, she's a single mom of, I think, 6, and I believe that her husband is blind. Those are things she's got in her bio. Maybe it was a mother of 5. Either way, sole income provider. So she's putting out her Etsy orders. It's middle of winter. They've had a bad winter. And she's not able to get things out because she hasn't been able to get the supplies in. So she had 2 people complain, and it's her understanding that's why her Etsy account was shut down. Now listen, let's talk coronavirus for a second. I don't care whether you believe coronavirus is real, staged, if you think that it's a bunch of baloney, or if you think the world is coming to an end, or where you fall in between. The truth is, coronavirus is affecting a lot of people's ability to get product, to make things. So for people who are on Etsy, who are makers, if you get your product from China, you're not getting stuff right now. So of course your orders are going to be late. And so it's very upsetting to me that your account can be shut down because of something that's completely out of your not understanding, but you can't control that. You can't control coronavirus. You can't control that you're getting stuff from another country that is shut down, some of its shipping. Oh, it makes me upset. And it makes me upset. Here's why. Because so many people are trying so hard to get their baby business off the ground. And they've been told that Etsy is going to work. And they see other people making 6 figures on Etsy. And they're like, well, if they can do it, I can do it too. And I applaud your willingness to try it. But you don't own anything on Etsy. Girlfriend, if you're going to have a legit business, you've got to have your own real estate in the online space. That means your own website and your own email list. And now some of you are breaking out in hives. I know. But listen, by the time, let's just say for fun math, let's say, where's my phone? Let's say you sold $9,000 last year on Etsy. Let's just say $9,000. And you have to pay out 25% of that in fees because, let's just say on an average, because of transaction fees, credit card fees, listing fees, ad fees. That's $2,250 that you paid out last year. You can more than get a great website for that. We have resources inside of my coaching groups that are $500, $750 for a good website. Please quit thinking a website's going to cost you $5,000, $10,000. It doesn't. That is so 5 years ago. Okay. How can I help you before I blow a gasket? I'm going to give you 3 things that I want you to just remember from this conversation. Again, good time to share this podcast to somebody who's on Etsy and trying so hard. It's not that I'm anti-Etsy. Honestly, you guys, it's not. But I am very pro-entrepreneur, which means if you've ever been laid off from a job, and maybe that's why I'm super passionate about, you know how vulnerable that feels. You know how vulnerable it feels to like have other people making decisions that affect the future of your family. When you work for somebody else and you either get laid off or fired, you have lost the ability to make any decisions about, it's not like you can fight it. I mean, unless it's wrongful. Do you know what I mean? Like they are the boss of you. And when you have an account on Etsy, it's the same thing. They are the boss of you. They're controlling what you're doing. They get to put rules into place, ads into place, and you get zero say on it. They didn't sit down, a bunch of you makers, and be like, okay, guys, here's kind of what we're thinking. Now, I know there's a slim portion of Etsy sellers who are kind of excited about the sales. They're making a ton of money on it. They're making a ton of money already on Etsy. For the people that are struggling on Etsy, this is not good news. It's not good news. So number 1, please remember, it's not that I'm anti-Etsy. I'm just pro-entrepreneur. I want you to quit thinking of yourself as a sweet little precious hobbyist who's selling earrings on Etsy and start thinking of yourself as a business owner. Your earrings are cute as the day is long. Please get your own website and sell your earrings because then you control everything. Everything. That's number 1. Number 2, please get your own email list. Because right now, if somebody buys from you on Etsy, like you're kind of limited in the way that you can go back to them and try to like not send them to your Etsy shop again, where, you know, they may or may not click on something that then gets another part, 20 to 29% of that is going to go back to fees with Etsy again. So in order to navigate that, you've got to have your own email list. You have to have your own website and you have to have a way to gather emails on that website. There's so few ways to do it without breaking Etsy's rules. We have a freebie for you that we made just really recently. Write this down. Type this out. Text this to a friend. Okay? It's jenniferallwood.com/email list. It'll help you to get started on your own email list. We've been working on our email list for years and years and years, you guys. We will hit 100,000 emails on that list very, very soon. That is the number 1 way we sell anything is through our email list. Even though I have way more followers on social media, your email list is critical. Now, it makes some of you go, ooh, because I don't like emails, but you aren't your client. Somebody just got an aha moment. You've got to think of where does your client want to shop? You may be a creative and a maker and you don't like email, but the woman who does is the woman that wears your cute earrings to work every day. So she's sitting at her computer with her email open 24, not 24/7, hopefully not, but she's sitting there with her email open all the time. So you don't want to necessarily send emails, but if that's where your client wants to engage with you, boy, you have to be doing that. You have to. Get your own email list. Go to jenniferallwood.com/email list. Tip number 3. I talked to some people this week who are like, wait, I didn't even know Etsy made some changes. This was in my coaching group this morning. And I was like, yeah, they made some changes. And there's some people, because they don't read email, they didn't even get the notifications. They didn't even realize Etsy had put some things into place. If you are not inside of a business group already or staying informed with a small group of women who talk business or something like that, you don't have a business coach, please find one. Please get one so they can steer you in this way. Because the way that Etsy has positioned this, by the way, makes it sound like it's a good thing for you. And I don't think it is. It's my gut. In my knower, I know it's not. So stay informed, get inside of a group, whether it's coaching with me, coaching with someone else, but I want you to know what's going on. I wanted to mention one of the women I was coaching today. Her name is Shar. And Shar used to do really well on Etsy. And a couple of years ago, it started going, oh, she sells like peel and stick stickers. And she was doing okay on Etsy for a minute until she wasn't. And then she saw how all of her sales, they were starting to decline on Etsy. So she made the shift from Etsy to Amazon Handmade. And she's in the top, the 1% of Etsy who make over $100,000 a year just from shifting from Etsy to Amazon. Now, is there rules there also? Yes. But are the fees less? Yes. Yes. And so she's working on her own website. So for those of you who are holding on to Etsy, but you're like holding on there because you don't want to let go of those few sales. Listen, sis, you're holding on so tightly to this small thing that you don't even have a hand to reach out and grab onto what could be so much bigger. I promise you that. Get your own website, get your own email list, and stay informed. There's better ways of doing business than on Etsy. And then, back to your client for just 1 second. If I'm looking for earrings, I promise you 100% of the time, I will never go to Etsy. It wouldn't even occur to me. If I'm looking for cute handbags, I would never go to Etsy. It wouldn't even occur to me. And I'm half of your ideal clients. I love buying stuff on the internet. I love supporting entrepreneurs. I love buying things that are handmade. I love colorful things from businesses that have, things that they give stuff to. I love that. I love supporting my fellow entrepreneurs. But 100% of the time, I forget about Etsy. I am your ideal client. I'm lying awake in bed at night just looking for I feel like, spending some money. I am your ideal client, and I never go to Etsy. I love you so much. I hope that this was helpful for someone. Go get that email list resource. It's at jenniferallwood.com/email list. And please subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. That way you get a new episode every week. You'll just get an alert on your phone and it'll say, hey, Jen's got a new podcast. Next week, I'm talking about how not to be overwhelmed and discouraged when your business is still kind of a baby business. And I want to help you to feel better about that. And lastly, did you guys know I'm on YouTube? So we had been talking about really trying to put more emphasis on our YouTube. And since I've had the whole hair drama, if you're following that on Instagram, you know that I have been a Diva Curl hair user for the last 2 years. In addition, I've lost half of my hair in the last 6 months. You can go to my Instagram highlights. There are 2 highlights called hair loss, and you can watch about it there. And I literally show you the back of my hair and where all of my hair is missing right now. It's, it is something. So anywho, we put up a video on the YouTubes about that, and it went absolutely nuts. And so if you don't know that we do have a YouTube channel, just search for Jennifer Allwood. You will find me there. I'd love to, if you enjoy watching video even more than what you do podcasts, then make sure you go and subscribe over there. All right. Bless you, friends. Until next week, be blessed. Bye-bye.